Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It is Monday morning. It's cold. It's snowing, but that's okay. We're here to talk recruiting. Now, Nick Saban has stepped down. We covered that on the last show, but since then, Bama has hired a new coach. We all know that Kalen DeBoer is already in Tuscaloosa. You guys, how are we feeling about that? Does DeBoer take over where Saban left off? Let me know how we're all feeling. Comment section below. Now, we're going to talk plenty of Alabama recruiting this offseason, but today, I wanted to, but DeBoer is still putting together his staff, so I'm going to give it a couple more days. We're going to get Tim Watts from Bama Online on our Thursday show. We'll dig into the recruiting impact of Kalen DeBoer to Bama. 17 years, man. I still can't get over the fact that after 17 years, Nick Saban stepped down. We didn't even get one last hurrah. The way that it came up, I don't know. Crazy time to be here, but it's exciting to cover. We got a lot to cover today. On Sunday, Isaiah Bond, former Bama wide receiver, committed to Texas. Now, we got the great Jerry Hamilton on to talk about that. And there's a possibility that one of Texas' top signees is asking out of his letter of intent. What's going on with that? We'll ask Jerry Hamilton. We're also going to talk Ohio State today, Georgia. Also, Pete Nako's portal expert. He joins the show. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. Texas takes a big one from Alabama. Isaiah Bond is off the board, no longer in the transfer portal because moments ago he announced his intentions to transfer to Texas. Now, that's big news, but there could be even more on the way. But first, we got to go back to 2024. There's some smoke that one of Texas's top 2024 signees might be trying to ask out of his letter of intent. I got Jerry Hamilton with me. He's going to take us behind the scenes of all these recent developments and make it make sense. But first, Texas fans, hit subscribe. Nick Saban has retired. Texas is moving to the SEC. What an off season we have ahead of us. Go ahead, hit subscribe for me, please. All right. Let's bring on three national analyst Jerry Hamilton. We'll get to the other stuff in a minute, but let's stay in the transfer portal for a second. Washington cornerback Jabbar Muhammad met with Texas last night. Now, he is originally from DeSoto, Texas. So what are you hearing? Is there a possibility he could be transferring to the Longhorns?
Well, Texas is definitely in it. Oregon was also in Dallas and met with Muhammad and his family on Saturday. Then Texas defensive backs coach Terry Joseph, came in to Dallas as well and met with Muhammad and the family. The next part of that is, look, Muhammad's scheduled as of today to visit Texas next week, late next week, or next weekend. We'll see if that continues to be scheduled out. I think Oregon went into yesterday with the lead, and I think the Ducks continue to have the lead right now. But Texas is making it a battle. I think if all things were equal, Jabbar Muhammad might like to play his last season a little closer to home, but we'll see if that actually happens.
Potential plug-and-play guy right there, Jerry?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, look, Terrence Brooks, Manny Muhammad, his cousin, both coming back at corner for Texas. Gavin Holmes also signed a lot of really good players in that secondary, obviously. But Jabbar Muhammad is a big-time talent, the corner position. He would definitely be a guy that I would pencil in to be a starter if he were to transfer to Texas. I think the same could be said for Oregon, by the way. But yeah, he would be a guy that starts, plays a lot, and has a big impact on the secondary, which at times did struggle in coverage last year.
All right, well, those transfer dominoes are falling fast. We'll keep an eye on that one. Now, another transfer that we got on campus Saturday in Austin was Alabama linebacker Kendrick Blackshear. Now, he's a veteran linebacker. He goes 6'2", 245 pounds. How important is he to Texas, and what are you hearing about their chances of landing him?
Yeah, I think Ole Miss is in that as well, right? Yeah. But Texas needs that adult, experienced, downhill inside linebacker. Right, that's what they need with the Jalen Ford moving on to the NFL. They have some young talent linebacker, guys still filling out their frames, a little more inexperienced players. But Kendrick Blackshear, with that move to the SEC, as you mentioned in the open, Josh, that's a big move for Texas. They need larger human beings at some positions, and Blackshear obviously would be one of those guys at inside linebacker. He would definitely fill a need for Texas, especially kind of as they transition some of their younger players to be more experienced players.
All right, just watch Ole Miss with Blackshear as well. Now, we teased at the top. What is going on with DeAndre Robinson? He's a top 300 defensive lineman out of Orlando. He goes 6'4", 315 pounds. And rumor has it he's asking out of his letter of intent. Jerry, what's happening?
Yeah, I talked to DeAndre Thursday and Friday, and he had talked to Steve Sarkisian. He said 5 times since the news of Bo Davis leaving, going to LSU hit. And I will say this: he's definitely considering asking for a release from his letter of intent.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely in play. I think if that were to happen, I think you could look at Florida, and I think you could look at LSU as the 2 main possibilities. I think Auburn's also would have some interest there. But really, I think it would come down to Florida and LSU if he goes through with that and Texas were to release him from his letter of intent. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see if Texas has their D-line hire and they at least want DeAndre to have a conversation or two with that D-line hire before Texas decides what to do with that national letter of intent.
So what's the hang up here? Is it cold feet on moving from Florida to Texas, or is it the fact that Texas lost their D-line coach?
It's Bo Davis on this one. I mean, that's who he had connected with. Tashard Choice obviously was part of that recruitment. He's the area recruiter for Texas in that Orlando and Tampa area. But this is really Bo Davis. This was Bo Davis. That's who he had the relationship with. That was his guy. And that was a big reason. When he committed July 20th, he said the development with Bo Davis was a huge piece for his decision to go to Texas over Florida at the time. So I think Bo Davis moving on to LSU would definitely be the reason that DeAndre asks out of that letter of intent if Texas releases him.
Weird situation there, but we will keep an eye on it. All right. Big addition right before we had you on, Jerry. Isaiah Bond commits to Texas now. Texas also has Houston wide receiver Matthew Golden already added. How big of an addition is Isaiah Bond to this Texas offense?
I think it's a huge addition because he runs 10.5 or 10.4, whichever one you want to call it, on his FAT personal best, right? He stretches the field vertically in a big way. I think in a way that Texas didn't even have this year. As fast as Xavier Worthy was, he was more of a guy you threw it to and let him go, right? But we're talking about just straight vertical speed, take the top off the defense, press those safeties to stay back in coverage, and then you put him with Matthew Golden. I mean, those are 2 dynamic guys in the kick return game as well, potentially. I mean, Matthew Golden obviously has 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns last year for the Cougars, but I think those guys blend well together. But that's 2 adults in the room at wide receiver now. There's no doubt, and they're different players. That's the thing about it. But there is nobody on the Texas roster that can turn and burn down the field like Isaiah Bond. That is a big addition for the Longhorns.
Huge addition, and now it looks like Texas trying to add some pieces to the defensive side of the ball out of the portal as well. Jerry Hamilton, thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop, breaking it all down for us.
You got it.
Georgia made a huge move on the field and on the recruiting trail. Georgia announced on Saturday that veteran defensive backs coach and ace recruiter Travaris Robinson is joining the staff in Athens. Now, I got Dogs HQ insider Jake Rowe on the show to take us behind the scenes of a hire that could shake things up in SEC recruiting. But first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. Dog fans, we need you. It's an important offseason, and we got you covered. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Jake Rowe from Dogs HQ for more. Now, Jake, we'll get to the big hire and the impact it'll have here in just a minute, but let's talk about some of the most important targets that were on campus this weekend. None other than 5-star defensive lineman Elijah Griffin, the number 1 defensive lineman in America for the 25 class, and he is from Savannah, Georgia. Is it time for the Dogs to close on this one? Who's the biggest competition here, Jake?
Looks like Clemson, I would say right now, Josh. Georgia's in good shape. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Georgia's been in good shape for a while. But we all know we're in a day and age now where being in good shape for a while and $1.25, $2 will buy you a Coke. All right. So Georgia does have to kind of close this deal, but listen, it's not going to be over till he signs. And, nobody's given up on a prospect like this. And, man, I tell you what, it has been a long, long time since I liked a defensive lineman in the state of Georgia more than I liked Elijah Griffin. I mean, it's, 6'5", 285 pounds. There's just some raw tools there. Derek Brown comes to mind. Trent Thompson was a little, I guess, shorter, and injuries kind of ate up his career, but he was kind of in that same mold as well. Elijah Griffin is elite, and I think Georgia really needs to land him in this class. He's the kind of guy that when you start talking about putting together all these elite, putting together these titles, and opportunities to win titles, that's the kind of guy you've got to have on the defensive line. And I do think Georgia's in tremendous shape, especially after this past weekend where I think the Bulldogs may have put some distance between themselves and the rest of the field.
Man, he would be and could be and probably will be the pillar of this Georgia 2025 class at some point, but that point is not just yet. All right, there's one other prospect that I just needed to ask you about, and that's cornerback Chris Ewald, the number 73 prospect overall, and he's from the state of Florida, but he is committed to Michigan, kind of that crown jewel right now of Michigan's 2025 class, and he was in Athens on campus when Georgia announced the news of Travaris Robinson joining the staff, and he had some interesting things to say. Jake, do you think Georgia made up ground in this recruitment, just having him on campus when all this went down?
I think so. I definitely think that Georgia kind of making up ground can sometimes be a little bit of a nebulous term, but I think that Georgia did kind of shake things up a little bit for him. Obviously getting him on campus is huge, right? I mean, that's step one. And then when you can kind of, bounce in and add a guy like, Travaris Robinson, when you can kind of put that trio of guys in his line of sight there with Dante Williams, with Trevier, with T-Rob, with Will Muschamp remaining on staff. I mean, I definitely think Georgia kind of got his attention there. Michigan won a national championship, doing phenomenal things. But you can tell that Georgia not only just really likes this kid, he doesn't really fit the specific mold that they love at DB, but they're all over him. And, I think you can tell that they like him a lot and that, he likes them a lot to be on campus to begin with. But not only that, I mean, I think this definitely gets his attention.
Yeah, and just being there with all the excitement on campus, it had to be a fun time and something that he'll probably remember moving forward. All right, let's talk some transfer portal. Caleb Downs, that's the big name everyone is waiting on to see whether or not he's going to go in the portal. Kind of tease some stuff on Twitter. Jake, what's your thoughts on Caleb Downs and potentially hitting the portal?
My gut feeling is he doesn't. I think – listen, I think Caleb Downs is the player Caleb Downs is because he's kind of built a little differently than most kids. I mean, not just from a frame perspective or athleticism. I think he's just got a different way of going about things, a different way of looking at things. And honestly, I think, listen, I don't know him all that well. I honestly don't know too much about him, but in talking with people who do know him, I think there's a loyalty there. I expect him to stick with Alabama. And that's not from any inside information on Georgia's part. What I do know is this. Georgia will be aggressive, absolutely aggressive. I'm talking about, claws out, snarling to try and get this kid if he goes into the transfer portal. But ultimately, I don't think he does. I think he stays at Alabama. Right or wrong, good or bad. I think if he's going to enter the transfer portal, I think it's going to be after he has given this new Alabama staff an entire year.
All right, fair enough. Now, what other Alabama transfers, though, do you think Georgia could be in the market for? Like, how about former 2023 five-star cornerback Desmond Ricks?
I don't see that one because Georgia had to work so hard to keep two guys that they really like around. To keep two guys that they just love in Daniel Harris and Julian Humphrey. They kept those guys out of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I don't see them coming back in and kind of undercutting that effort by adding, somebody out of the transfer portal, even a cornerback. And I think if they were to add a cornerback, I think they would add a guy that they feel like can come in and start and play like immediately right away. Rick's phenomenal talent, doesn't bring that element of experience that I feel like Georgia would need at that position. So, I think if you start talking about, who would Georgia be after if they came out of the portal for Alabama? I'm looking defensive line. I'm looking edge. Would you, could you see a Jeremiah Alexander, for instance, or could you see even offensive tackle and Elijah Pritchett? I know when he went into the portal earlier, I know that there was some scuttlebutt about Georgia maybe getting involved there. You could never have enough, really talented offensive linemen. I think you look along the defensive line. Like if Jaheim Otis were to happen to jump in, Georgia would be front and center on that one.
But there's definitely
the defensive backfield right now, unless it's Caleb Downs.
Yeah, there's definitely some guys where if they hit the portal, Georgia's going to be all over them. So we'll see what happens, Jake. But first, hey, Georgia fans, let me know. Comment section below. Who do you guys want out of the transfer portal? Is it a Caleb Downs, somebody that's not even in there yet? Or are there some other pieces that you're looking at? Let me know. Comment section below. Jake Rowe, I have a feeling it's going to be a really busy week on Dogs HQ. Appreciate you dropping by the Inside Scoop.
Always is, man. I appreciate it.
The offseason got a little more serious for Ohio State after Michigan wins the national championship. Now, of course, every offseason is important. Don't get me wrong. But when your rival that's beat you the last 3 years in a row and won the Natty, things get a little bit more serious in the offseason. And Ohio State, they're already off to a hot start in the 2025 class, but there's something brewing in 2024 as well. And I got Matt Parker in this video to talk about some of the moves that Ohio State is making to close the gap on Michigan. But first, Ohio State fans, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. It is an important offseason. You're going to be wanting to get informed on all the big developments. So hit subscribe for me, please. All right. Ohio State has the number 2 ranked class in the 2025 cycle already. They've landed Devin Sanchez, who's the number 2 ranked cornerback in America and number 6 overall prospect. Also, they got their quarterback, Tavian St. Clair, number 19 overall prospect in America. So they're cooking. Let's bring on Matt Parker from Letterman Row because I want to talk about the next big name on this Ohio State recruiting hit list for 2025, and that is linebacker TJ Alford out of Vero Beach. He is a beast, and really he had been trending to UF, but linebacker coach Jay Bateman leaves for Texas A&M. Matt, can Ohio State capitalize here?
I absolutely think that Ohio State can capitalize here. And it starts off with the relationship between TJ Alford, James Laurinaitis, Jim Knowles, and Ryan Day. And the Buckeyes really sunk their teeth into this recruitment in June of 2023 when Alford showed up for a recruiting camp in Columbus and had a private workout with Jim Knowles and James Laurinaitis. And anytime that happens, anytime an Ohio State coach pulls aside a kid for a private workout at these recruiting camps where, hundreds of kids are there, that's a pretty big deal. That's pretty significant. And ever since then, the relationship between Alford and his family and Ohio State has blossomed into this this really, really positive thing. Alford was on campus for, I believe, the Michigan State game in November of 2023. Spent a lot of time with Laurinaitis and Knowles, and that was one of the better games for the Ohio State linebackers as well. I just put in a prediction actually on Sunday for Ohio State to land Alford into the On3 recruiting prediction machine with a confidence level at 65%, excuse me. Alford has confirmed with me that he's going to take a visit to Ohio State in the spring during spring ball for Ohio State. So all signs are pointing towards the Buckeyes getting this thing done early.
And that would be huge. I mean, Ohio State going back into the state of Florida where, they have varying levels of success, but you got to love that they're willing to duke it out in the state of Florida. I mean, for every Jordan Lyle or Mark Fletcher, there's a Jeremiah Smith, there's a Brandon Innes, and now we're going to see if they can duke it out with the in-state Florida teams for TJ Alford. And it seems like they're going to have a pretty good shot at him. Now, I teased at the top that Ohio State also had something brewing for 2024, and it looks like defensive lineman Dominic Kirks is back on the market. 6'5", 250 from Painesville, Ohio. Now, he was committed to Washington, but just recently decommitted, and Ohio State already got him on campus, Matt?
Yeah, that decommitment happened the day before he began his official visit at Ohio State. This is a prospect that Ohio State has been interested in for a while now, dating back all the way to 2023. And there's been some injury concerns with Kirks as it relates to Ohio State. There's been some doubts, maybe concerns about, could he fit in with what Ohio State wants to do? And now Ohio State is in a little bit of a position where they simply need bodies in their defensive line room. Even with JT Tuimoloau coming back and Jack Sawyer and Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton, those guys are only there for one more season. And then after that, it's kind of a who's who, and you need depth. Dominic Kirks presents a really good depth piece. He's currently on his official visit to Ohio State that wraps up Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And Letterman Rose, Alex Gleitman put in a pick for the Buckeyes to land Kirks. We'll see. There are some other contenders that are in the mix. Kirks took an official visit to USC. Michigan is interested. Michigan State is interested. But it's notable that he did not sign in December with the Huskies, and now he's decommitted. He's back on the market, and I do like where Ohio State stands for the in-state prospect. It is a little bit different anytime an in-state prospect is getting attention from Ohio State, and I think that might accelerate this recruitment. And Ohio State could add a third defensive lineman for its 2024 class, joining Edric Houston, the 5-star edge from Buford, and Eric Mensa, the 3-star defensive tackle from Stafford, Virginia.
Hey, wouldn't be a bad piece to kick the tires on. I mean, he's 6'5", 240 pounds. He could grow into something special. We'll have to see what happens there. Now, we talked about Ohio State getting off to a hot start in 2025. When can we expect the next big Junior Day visit? Because we know those weekends, they tend to come with some fireworks.
Yeah, Ohio State is real funny in how they do its quote unquote junior days. It prefers in the winter time, maybe a little bit of a smaller, more intimate group as opposed to some other schools. But January 20th is shaping up to be a pretty big day for the Buckeyes. We're expecting, a few priority targets in town, including 4-star tight end Nate Roberts, who Ohio State has made the clear-cut priority. Jonah Williams, the 4-star linebacker, safety out of Texas, whatever position you'd like to see him at. Ohio State is recruiting him at safety, which is notable because the Buckeyes just hired Matt Guerreri as the new safeties coach. So his recruiting chops are going to be put to the test with a big-time prospect coming in on the 20th. And it's not yet confirmed, but we are expecting 4-star running back Marquise Davis to make another visit to Ohio State. And that is a big one because, Josh, that's shaping up to be an Ohio State-Michigan battle right now.
Love to see it. All right. A lot happening this offseason. It is very important offseason for Ohio State. Matt Parker with Letterman Row. Thanks for dropping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate the time.
Miami circles back on their number one QB target, and they get him on Saturday. Cam Ward announced his intentions to play for the Miami Hurricanes next season. But remember, on January 1, Cam Ward initially said he'd be heading to the NFL, but Miami, they never gave up. They get their guy in Cam Ward. We're going to talk to On3 Portal insider Pete Nakos to go behind the scenes and find out how all this went down. But first, Miami fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. It is an exciting time. And hey, you got your quarterback. Hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on Pete Nakos, On3 Portal expert. And Pete, we thought Cam Ward was heading to the NFL. He was viewed as the top QB on the market at the time. So how was Miami able to convince him to come to Coral Gables?
Yeah, it kind of all goes back to the NFL decision. He chose to never hire an agent right off the bat, keeping college in because when you don't sign with an agent, you still have the option to return to college. And then, all credit goes to Miami here. Miami continued to talk nonstop to Cam Ward and didn't let him just go unnoticed and continued to try to build on that relationship. And it ultimately ended with him deciding to go to Miami.
Now, when Cam Ward initially went into the portal, it looked like it was either going to be FSU or Miami. He took visits to both schools. Now, was Miami the only team that was trying to talk him out of the NFL, or were there other programs as well?
I don't think Auburn ever stopped talking to him either. Obviously, Florida State moved on after they got DJU. But yeah, I think Miami really impressed him with their commitment to him. And I know he had a really great official visit there. And then I think they just continued to build that relationship after the fact.
All right. So the next logical question for Miami fans is, are there any wide receivers in the portal right now that Miami could still make a play for?
The USC wide receivers Dorian Singer and Mario Williams are still available. Mario is obviously from the Florida area, so maybe going to Miami could make sense and teaming up with Cam Ward. Dorian Singer, obviously former Arizona transfer. I kind of see him staying on the West Coast.
All right. Now, we've seen a flurry of action from Alabama and Washington prospects hitting the portal, or players hitting the portal. The one, though, that I wanted to talk to you about is linebacker Sean Murphy, one of the top prospects in the 2022 class. What's the initial interest there?
Just talking to some sources, I can confidently say that I think Florida State and Ohio State are definitely going to take a look at Sean Murphy. Both have kind of seen some attrition at the linebacker position, and Florida State has really prioritized the linebacker position in this transfer portal.
Any word on initial visits with Sean Murphy?
I have not been able to confirm any visits just yet, but there's definitely going to be plenty of interest in him.
Yeah. Where are we with the window of spring semester starting? How imperative is it that these guys get enrolled in classes? What's the cutoff date?
Yeah, so classes started in Tuscaloosa on January 10th. January 17th is the last day to withdraw from classes without it showing up on the transcript. And the other flip side to all this is a lot of major programs like Clemson and Ohio State. You can name quite a few there who also started classes last week. So trying to get in to classes at those schools will probably be a hurdle for some of these athletes to get on campus for spring ball.
All right, so we're probably going to see a flurry of action in the next 5 to 7 days. Now, on the other side of the big coaching change that happened between Alabama and Washington, Washington cornerback Jabbar Muhammad, major development. We heard that he met with Texas yesterday. What are you hearing about Jabbar Muhammad and where he could land?
A very talented cornerback. I've heard a lot of Oregon actually in the first 48 hours or so, and have been told that obviously he has a good relationship with Texas, but Oregon is the favorite at this moment.
All right. Now, also in Washington, Will Rogers. He made a quick stop there from the portal, leaving Mississippi State just momentarily. He has entered himself back into the transfer portal. What are we hearing on Will Rogers? Do you think he could end up returning to Washington, or is it over?
It's a very interesting time, right? Because when you go in the portal, you always have the option to return. Washington hasn't named a head coach yet. Maybe they hire someone that Will wants to play under. With the news this afternoon of J.J. McCarthy going to the NFL draft, your mind kind of has to go to the fact that is Michigan a player in this? Obviously, Auburn is still kind of looking for a quarterback as well. And does Will go back to the SEC? Those are just options right now. I'm not saying that definitively or anything like that, but those are just two schools that kind of pop in your mind that would make sense.
Interesting. We'll keep an eye on Will Rogers. Now, the top available transfer portal prospect is offensive tackle Lance Hurd, who's leaving LSU. Throughout the week, it was either Tennessee, Oklahoma. Those were kind of the most two schools talked about. Did he end up visiting anywhere this weekend? And what's the latest on Lance Hurd?
From my understanding, he didn't go on a visit this weekend, but I won't be surprised if we randomly see something on Instagram that he was out of school this weekend. I continue to hear it's Oklahoma or Tennessee. Both really want him on their offensive line and really feel like he has a lot to offer. But this is getting really interesting because we heard all the chatter about Ole Miss, and then I was told Ole Miss kind of pulled out. And you would have thought that he'd make a fairly quick decision, but that just has not happened.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. There's Lance Hurd, man. That is an interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised if he pops up somewhere this weekend. But like I said, hey, some of these dominoes are going to have to start falling because the spring semester is starting. These guys got to get enrolled so they can participate in spring ball. Pete, it's going to be a busy week for you. Thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop. We'll catch up with you in a few days.
Thanks so much, Josh.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.